Good evening again. Another subject that I've been wanting to mention in this mode. Uh, the matters that I am mentioning in these video messages have been occurring through a span of a lot of years. And right now I decided to remember about around 20 years ago, 20 years ago or nearly 20 years ago, when I started to introduce a little Christmas story that I wrote that at the time was named Blessies, Friends, It's Almost Christmas Time Again Already. It's just a nice, cute little story idea that I had back then that I actually first thought of in December of 2001. At the time, I didn't have much of any resources, and but by 2002, I did have a little bit of stability in life about having a place where I was allowed to be, where I had permission to be on the grounds of a building on Curtis Avenue, across from the library. I very much appreciated the hospitality at the time, and continued to work on the little story until I got myself a portable manual typewriter and got it all typed, and there was still some editorial difficulties, but for the time and considering the various circumstances, that I got it completed fairly well, but didn't know how I could possibly go about getting it published. So I made little duotang booklets, and I introduced the book around. I used a little sign actually on the roadside occasionally, and sometimes in front of a local Books A Million store. And I had a little bit of achievement about it. And a result of the story was a lot of cute talk that I couldn't have anticipated. And the harassing that is continuing to be put at me is by terrible abuse criminals. And they've been doing it to me for so many years. I've got documentation that goes back 20 years about them being terrible rampages back then also. And, there was a lot of awareness, and there's always the hope day to day that there's going to be help about it, and in some ways there was, but the corruption has power, and they're able to continue the noisy disturbing. But back then, really, there is some cute fun in the book, and the word got around, and little girls and boys would often comment cutely from their passing cars, cute waving a pretend typing, and like there's the guy out on the bus stop typing, and cute waving a pretend typing back and forth to each other, and it was really extraordinary. Other than being able to actually have a published achievement, it really was a uniquely extraordinary experience about being spoken of so much, about a little book that I was able to introduce locally only through the use of a duotang booklet. So anyway, I really appreciated and valued the commenting, and it was very worried and sorry about the fact that there was a corruption that intruded so loudly and maliciously. And so often then I was noting that I'm always a good patriotic citizen, but so much of the disruption included the few corrupt abuse criminals that use the word Marines hundreds, thousands of times a day, talking mufflers, disrupting and passing traffic. They just absolutely, and they, of course, because they themselves are mean, they resented that I ended up writing something that included some cute funniness and was gentle. They just absolutely resented it terribly, and it's their disruption. And of course, they started accusing that I was a molester. When I wrote something that was so nicely and cutely commented about, they reacted by starting to break inside of the library systems, accusing me of being a molester, getting into a traffic sound, saying molesters in the Marine Corps and stuff like that. But I know that I'm innocent, and I was monitored and interfered at through all the entire time that I wrote the little book. I included it most of the first ideas in my journal day to day, and through the years back then, it was alleged that persons of the former family stole it and made money on it. It was alleged that others stole it and made money on it, including a particular church. You know, it was really, really disgusting. You know, I wouldn't have ever imagined that anyone would be so low about wanting to make a fight out of a gentle book. You know. So anyway, what ended up also happening is that as respectful as I am about persons that actually win awards about really legitimate service, what happened is another reaction against girls talking about me was that others started spreading a rumor through the school system alleging that I was congressional. And, you know, there was official involvement about it. There was so much announcing. I'd walk, you know, as I'd be walking Gulfgate Drive, for example, kids playing on the playgrounds shouting, "Ralph's Congressional! Ralph's Congressional!" You know, happily shouting from the PE field. You know, there was so many instances in passing. There was talk about it in the library. You know, sometimes it was, when I was working on the serious stuff that I had to work about, there were times, years after, where there was even playing of the presidential salute trumpets into the library. There was so much activity, it was amazing. You know, I remember one day I was riding on a bus. There were cute girls riding by in a car, and they were discussing me, and they were talking worriedly, saying that they were worried that I was going to be taken away from them. I know that sounds like hype, but really there was a lot of cute pretending about the matter. The word "blessies" is one of the cutest words that there is. You know, it isn't it's something. You know, it isn't. You know, I don't make a production about it originating from me. You know, I thought of it, but it'd probably been cutely said by girls and boys even before. But gosh, you know, I was always worried and caring. You know, I remember. Excuse me, there's some mosquitoes in here. I remember one time that there was a girl with her mother who looked to me so proudly, and she had first heard about me because of the little book. And she looked at me so proudly, waiting for me to pass by, and said, "Ralph's Congressional." And it was really important. But I'm telling you the truth, like I've said so many times, that the abuse, corruption hated that I was here being spoken of nicely. They resented of it. They resented it. You know, every notation, every instance of there being gentle talk about me is that the opposition, the corrupt abuse family and their associates started more of their creepy, mean rampaging. So anyway, I'm saying the truth, and there are many people locally and probably elsewhere who will remember it, that back then, nearly 20 years ago in 2002, or maybe only about as far back as 2004, that there was talk all around saying that Ralph was congressional. And now others, the adult men that get into the traffic sound, they were saying that they were saying it sometimes also. It was also said by some of the rampaging that said the word Marines often, and it was really significant. And I was walking along Bee Ridge Road Beneva Road one day, and a nice lady driving a school bus passed by saying, "In school they talk about him like he's another kid." There was so much nice talk, and the simultaneous monitoring and interfering by the abuse family and their henchmen is they immediately always resent it. And I'm hoping that the matters are going to be resolved favorably before they maybe try to destroy the world. The good Congressional wouldn't. If I really had any medal from the honor from the United States of America, my home, my nation, I'd honor it. I'd have been respectful about it if I agreed about the reason. But I've been a civilian. The only time I was actually in the military was from 75 through 77. The goodness of the United States of America doesn't threaten to destroy the world, but the maniacs, the abuse criminals, they're rampaging. These days, they're rampaging and saying Armageddon threats, and they just always like to rampage. I just wanted to clarify, because when I said the threat of destroying the world isn't said by anything that it's a good of this nation. It's said by creepy corruption that associates themselves with others also. So anyway, really, this is for peace, sensible, a restoration of the domestic tranquility, for traffic sounding like traffic instead of a lot of maniacs interfering in it, for everyone being saved, for there being another election, for there being the future, for the good children of these days to grow up in 18 or 20 years from now, have a better time for themselves, more assured futures for themselves and their posterity, for the goodness of the United States to prevail instead of the corruption of darkness that keeps on threatening to get our nation destroyed, for there being a good and bright future instead.